Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are in full Halloween mode. We are in the month of October, and what would October be without some good old raw found footage movies? I really like found footage just because of the unique perspective that it brings. And one of my favorite ongoing movie series, VHS. And lucky for us, just in time for this season of horror, we got a new VHS movie called VHS Halloween. And while I am not a huge fan of every single movie, I believe the first two are really good. Viral, and then what is it, 94? Not so great. VHS Beyond was amazing. And VHS Halloween is another, I think, solid entry, not the best of the series, but definitely a really solid entry. Now, before we get into any of them, quick trigger warning. Apparently, these directors, because I believe there's six different directors, one for every story, pretty much said
Fuck them kids! Fuck them! I don't give a fuck! I don't!
so. If you are not okay with seeing children in very horrible positions, and I'm not talking about like toddlers and babies, I'm talking about like young kids, upper elementary school through middle school into high school, there are stories, especially the one called Kid Print. That is the one where you are going to, if you are not okay with seeing children being harmed in films, you're gonna wanna skip that story in particular because that one is solely based around kids. This movie pulls no punches, which I kinda like, but it can also lead to some kinda cheesy moments, and this movie is definitely filled with cheesy moments. Real quick, some of the we're gonna go through some of the details of the stories just so you get a good sense of what these stories are. So we're gonna rip the Band-Aid off, and we're gonna go directly into Kid Print. Now, like I said, this one is one of the more, I wanna say, graphic and kinda disturbing ones, especially if you don't like seeing kids being harmed. This one, it's about a small town, and they're having these kids just go missing. It takes place in a time that where there are no cell phones and internet is like pretty much in its infancy. And these kids are going missing. A local video store owner decides to take it upon himself to make videos of these kids. So that way, when they go missing, you have something updated to help find them. But it turns out that what's happening inside of the video store is far more devious than we possibly could have imagined. There is a lot of hard imagery of torture. There's a lot of blood in this one. It is a very graphic scene. This one I thought was, I mean, it doesn't follow the typical supernatural. It's more along the lines of the serial killer type of movie, but a solid entry nonetheless. Like I said, if you're not okay with children being harmed, just go ahead and skip this one. I left out a lot of details just so that you have something to discover. And also, I don't want YouTube to get mad at me again. The next story is Diet Phantasma. Now, Diet Phantasma is our frame. It is what plays in between the individual stories that tells an overall story. Diet Phantasma essentially is a focus group, a taste testing group where these scientists are testing a new drink. And every single time someone drinks it, something god awful happens to them. I mean, from the can ripping through their face to something ripping out of them to once again a lot of blood. And there is a child, there are several children that are also harmed in this one as well. The next story I'm going to talk about was probably my least favorite, and it's called Coochie Coochie Coo. Yeah, the thing you would say to babies, which this story is about two immature girls who are this is their senior year of high school. This is their last time trick or treating as kids, quote unquote, even though they're 17, 18 years old, and they stumble upon a house, and they're not very they they make every mistake that you should not make in a horror movie. If you are being invited into a house that no one else is going to, you should probably take the fucking hint not to go into that house. But they do, and they encounter a demonish woman who is turning people into dribbling babies. Yeah, remember I told you the cheesy part? This is a part of the cheesy part. It is it is kind of a creepy story at first, but then kind of devolves into something a little cheesy. I wasn't the biggest fan of this, but it's the first story. You get it started, you get it over with, and you move on to some of the more gruesome stories. So, moving on. The next one, I'm actually going to put the title on the screen because it is in a different language. He says it a couple of times throughout the movie. I can't say it because as you see below that it is it's not in English, and I would have to listen to it 1,000 times to be able to repeat it one time accurately. But this is completely a subtitled portion of the movie. This story goes into more of a crime investigation mystery supernatural kind of thing. And when I say kids, I mean like young adults to teenagers, teenagers to young adults. They go to a party and all of them end up dead except for one. And the police force this one lone survivor to essentially reenact. They take them back to the crime scene. They force them to kind of relive and reenact what happened so that it can make sense to them, and what happens is just absolute insanity. This story was actually pretty good. It was very interesting. Trying to figure out where this story was going to go was actually pretty fun and interesting. I like this one. So, this is definitely going to be one that you want to pay attention to. The next one is Fun Size. You know, when you're going trick or treating, or if you've ever put out a bowl for trick or treating and you put a sign that says take one, and how can I say this nicely? Some inconsiderate jackass decides to take a whole bunch. Well, imagine if you could punish that person for taking more than one. This is essentially what happens. And this one is very graphic. The very graphic. These people get sucked into an alternate dimension where they are slowly hunted down and turned into candy for others to then take one and eat. And there is one very, 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 very gross part. I will let you discover that all on your own. But this one I thought was pretty good. It was very interesting. I didn't really know where it was going until we got there. So enjoy Fun Size. And the last story is called Home Haunt. This one is probably my favorite. We have a family. The dad is really into Halloween, which I don't blame him. He likes to create his own haunted house, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't do it to my home to have neighbors walking through my shit, but he creates a haunted house and he's been doing it for years. His son has finally begun to outgrow what his dad is doing, bringing up a lot of resentment. But one year, they're doing a haunted house. One year, they do a haunted house. And his dad, upon shopping for trinkets and decorations to decorate their home, he comes across a book that he then brings into his house. They read it and they summon something very, very dark. Their haunted house becomes real, and he essentially opens a portal to a whole nother dimension. And the things from there begin to come into here, and absolute insanity breaks out. This one is another one where you will see children being harmed. This one is actually a really good story. This is one of my favorites in the entire movie. The ending is very bleak, which fits in with this horror, with this villain week that I'm doing. But there you go. In a nutshell, those are all six stories, very shortly described from VHS Halloween. Do you like VHS? Have you seen it? By the way, it is available on Shutter. I really like this one. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below, and I will see y'all in the next video. Boo.